Hello, all. Welcome. This is the DALL-E print workshop for SGCI 2023. I am Dana Potter, and I have here with me two other folks who are going to walk through this workshop. Our mission is to investigate whether AI technologies can create print-like imagery. And I'll introduce myself, and then I'll pass it off to my friends here. So, as I said, I'm Dana Potter, and I currently work at the University of Northern Iowa. And my work comes at the intersection of printmaking and biometric technologies. So I'm interested in AI because it gathers lots of data about people's biometric information.
Hi, I'm Mary Claire Becker. I'm assistant professor of printmaking at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And in my work, I explore a lot of sort of like translating and distorting images from art historical sources using digital media and then outputting them as handmade prints. So I'm curious to think about how artificial intelligence also does that as its way of making images.
And I'm Kathryn Combs. I am currently a visiting assistant professor at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. And my work considers how social media is collecting information about us and how that continues to live on. So I'm very excited about the big data aspects of AI.
Excellent. Well, I think this is just an all-star team to talk about AI and printmaking. If you are also a folk in the audience who is interested in this, I would be excited to hear from you. Our agenda for today is I'm going to walk through one particular point in art history that I think kind of contextualizes where this idea came from for this panel, this workshop. And then we're going to play a game called Is It AI or Is It a Print? And then I'll talk a little bit about how AI works, and we're going to play with the DALL-E 2 print, the DALL-E 2 AI image generator, and see if it can make a print. And then we'll also play with Midjourney a little bit. So to start us off here, I hopefully will not take too long to dive into the history of print and AI. So when I first heard that AI image generators were hitting the market, one of the main things that people kept reporting in the media, a lot of the headlines said things like, AI image generators are going to be the end of art as we know it. We can just make things with AI now, which is pretty loaded. And also, there have been many historical occasions on which mechanical reproduction have caused existential crises for artists. And so I thought we could just review one of those many occasions and go back to the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution was a major shift in producing goods on a smaller scale to mass producing standardized goods for a wider reach. And with the rise of the mechanized factory system, we saw different job roles. So this meant not just people working in the factory, people who were owning the land. It was also a middle class. They were the business merchants, the clerks, the engineers, the people overseeing the affairs of the factory. And so they were distinctly wealthier than the working class, but not quite as wealthy as the landowning class. And this is key because we started to see a group of folks who saw themselves as climbing the ladder, so to speak. And that really influenced the visual aesthetics of the era. So this was also when chromolithography became a medium of making images. And so you could mass produce lots of posters, product packaging, And this was trying to sell things to this middle class. It was trying to say, if you buy this, you will have an easier life, you'll have an easier time. You are more close to that wealthy lifestyle. So in the example we see on the right, there's people who are lounging on the grass, taking it easy, because the baking powder has helped save time in their day so they can do other things like hang out in the park. But there were also folks who were looking at these designs and looking at the value system embedded in these designs and saying, hey, I don't think I agree with that. I think that these designs are not very beautiful and not selling values that I want to see in my society. And so while these prints that we see here are called the Victorian style, the reaction to the Victorian style print was called the arts and crafts movement. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into why the arts and crafts folk thought that the Victorian style was so ugly, because I think it'll point to our contemporary discussion about AI. So when these lithographs were made in the 1800s, we're talking like 1820 to 1900 in England, America, and much of Europe. To this point, fine art and image making was things like wallpaper, and less so advertisements. Advertisements were a new invention of this era. So they were borrowing from the visual language of what came before, but producing it at a faster pace and in a different medium. So it changed how it looked. So on the left, we see wallpaper that would have been in the home of a wealthy estate in the 1800s. And on the right, we see a poster that's selling Sutton's cream of ammonia. And if we look at both, we can see how there's visual principles in play. Both have symmetry, both are using ornate little details to sort of decorate the imagery, but the one on the left is being much more specific about the symmetry. Everything is quite particular. We see the same exact curl, the same number of beads, the same number of frills on each side, whereas in the Sutton cream of ammonia example, things are not so perfectly aligned. The banners go in slightly different directions. We don't have the exact same number of frills in our ornamentation. And while the one on the left is trying to be more realistic and particular about, you know, leaves that have details and depth to them, the one on the right, this yellow border, especially to me, is what one might compare to the leaf ornaments in the wallpaper. You could maybe say that this is leaf-like, but one might say it's kind of gooby, or it's like attempting to be drawn like a leaf, but is maybe moving a little quicker and skipping some details. The final complaint that the arts and crafts folk had, once again, was that this was the first time that mass amounts of branding and posters and ads were infiltrating public and private space. You know, we're really used to going out and seeing like billboards, posters, product packaging everywhere around us, but that was like brand new and very strange at the time. And so the arts and crafts folk were like, our product designs is selling products really what we want to value in how we're surrounding ourselves in our homes and in our public spaces? Is there not some other value or meaning we could be putting into the imagery that's around us? So the arts and crafts movement was really a revival of the woodcut and an instilling of moral values into image making. And the woodcut in particular was a process that was not as mechanically reproducible as the lithograph. I guess you might just say that it wasn't on the like it wasn't on the factory floor, right? There's levels of mechanical reproduction in terms of the printing press versus the computer we have today. But to the folks at the time, carving with tools by hand was distinctly a skilled labor that was generated an aesthetic difference to the lithograph, the chromolithograph in particular. And this arts and crafts revival was particularly monetarily funded by William Morris. So in order to get this idea of the arts and crafts into production, just like the lithograph was being produced at scale, it needed monetary backing. So William Morris and other upper middle class wealthy folks invested in training people to create woodcuts. So we also saw a revival of imagery like from the medieval woodcut in borrowing both the presentation of a moral or a story in the imagery. And these were mostly going on things like book covers, book pages, objects that would be in the home and not necessarily out in society, hence the investment also in wallpaper in the arts and crafts movement. And while it was also borrowing and reviving religious ideas of embedding images with narrative for a moral value, it wasn't necessarily just about a specific religion. So if we look at these two examples, in reaction to the industrialized society that was focused on factory life and making a lot of things very quickly, this imagery instead promotes the ideals of slowness and making things by hand. So if we look at the one on the left, we see a young woman surrounded by nature, and she looks like she's contemplating something, maybe reading. And so that's a stark contrast to the city center and the bustling picnic lawn from the image we saw earlier. Or for example, in the image on the right, instead of thinking about goods that are produced at a mass scale, we see someone making a sword, possibly other small object, on an anvil by hand. And so bringing back this idea that there's a value in doing something slower by hand. So if we think about how the arts and crafts movement was looking at the chromolithographs and being like, this is gooby, this is like not well crafted, it doesn't have a sense of detail in rendering realistic imagery. I think we can really see that in the way that AI has issues drawing hands and faces. But I do think AI will get to a point where it doesn't make these kinds of strange, gooby mistakes. And so I just think we're at a really unique point to talk about what is the role of making a print. In particular, if we think about ourselves like the arts and crafts movement, in terms of technique, but also in terms of content. So this is a quote from the Victorian era of a critic saying, "How many objects of ordinary use are rendered monstrous and ridiculous simply because the artist has embodied some extravagance to conceal the real purpose for which the object has been made." And so I think it's very fun and silly that we can make robot Picasso or avocado armchair, but these, especially like the DALL-E AI image generator, is selling itself as something that can generate images that are strange and combine different ideas, but I'm not seeing like how that is instilling a value or a direction of what kind of imagery we want to make or surround ourselves with. So I'm hoping that maybe if we try to make some woodcuts in AI, in collaboration with AI today, we might answer some questions in those regards. what is y'all's familiarity with that line of history, or do you have anything you want to comment on or add?
Yeah, I think, that's a moment in history that I think about frequently in my own work as well. I think you can one of my prints is on the wall behind me that's like directly inspired by William Morris. So it's interesting to see how sort of like over time, as we as printmakers like continue exploring new topics in our work, and not as printmakers, but just as artists in general, like, my new references continue to somehow harken back to my old references, sort of like the cyclical nature of how changes in technology engender similar reactions throughout time. And I especially liked like looking at those medieval woodcuts and realizing this, remembering that the inspiration for the arts and crafts movement came from those. And also I realized as I was looking at those in your presentation, like half of my printmaking students right now are making images that look exactly like that. It's insane. Like they all want to put frames on everything. They're looking at illuminated manuscripts. They're combining text and image in these sort of storybook ways. And I hadn't even thought about the idea of, how are the images that they're making related to the images they're seeing in their digital landscape. And I don't know, I kind of want to talk to my students now and ask them if they're thinking about any of those things that you brought up in that presentation. So that was cool.
Yeah, I was thinking similarly, like it seems like a lot of people right now are having a kind of arts and crafts moment, maybe not even specifically artists, but I think of that meme, the like stop glamorizing the grind and start glamorizing whatever this is, and it's like Frog and Toad. Like thinking about this like kind of pastoral lifestyle, that slower speed that most people have never really actually participated in and have no access to. So it's kind of interesting to feel like we're at this major changing point again and having similar instincts.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like cottagecore TikTok, like that's a whole aesthetic of people sort of like dressing in old-timey outfits and pretending that they live in some rural setting and posting videos about their idyllic fake rural life to the internet. Yeah. And I mean, I think as a young person, like, when I was like middle school, high school, I remember being really enamored with like, I was like a little bit too young to be there for zines, but I was like really enamored with the idea of zines and sort of like DIY printing culture. And so I think that it's just another example of how we're always sort of trying to hold on to ethics and ideas about making as history moves forward.
Yeah. And yeah, just like the cyclical nature of culture within this evolution of technology.
Yeah.
On that note, are y'all ready to guess whether it's a print or AI?
Yeah.
Here we go. Is it AI or a print? Okay, image one.
I think it's a print.
What do you think, Kathryn?
I'm looking really closely. The only thing that is tripping me up is this right edge that's beyond that border.
Oh yeah.
Wait, actually, well, okay,
AI.
the thing that makes me think it's a print is that I've had a really hard time getting the DALL-E to make crisp lines. Like it always makes the lines really fuzzy. But now that I'm looking closer, I'm seeing like the like grayscale shading on her face and realizing that I think it's AI and that you're just better at telling AI what to do than I am. Okay, AI. I changed my mind.
It's AI. Okay. Kathryn?
Yeah, it's AI.
Okay, it's AI.
Oh,
The prompt was a medieval woodcut. I did find if I said medieval woodcut that even if I was just trying to get it to make a woodcut in general, it got more specific. And I picked this language in particular because I found this print of a woman with a wing head and then Cupid blindfolded. And I want to note that it really didn't get all of that. Like it didn't get the sense of like a chariot being pulled by eagles, like at all. This like horse creature has like maybe an eagle head, but I'm not sure. But I like could not get it to make her crown into wings at all. Like it just would.
funny.
Okay.
Yeah. I like thinking about how there's like the medieval bestiary images, like so many sort of like medieval woodcuts or images of strange monsters.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that AI is best at making, is strange monsters. So it kind of makes sense.
Yes, agreed. If we could if we could just have a portfolio of medieval woodcut AI generated monsters, that would be great. It'd be beautiful.
Count me in.
Okay, next up here, AI or real print?
I think this one might be a real print. What do you think, Mary Claire?
I think so too. Because I think I'm like looking for, it's kind of hard to tell if the texture is like woodcut texture or if it's AI smears. But I think it's woodcut.
Okay, cool. For anyone who's an art historian in here, they probably would have immediately been like, that's because it has Falco guns like big initials in the middle.
Oh.
So, not
True.
I didn't notice it at first either, but then I was like, oh yeah, his initials are right there. But I showed this one to my partner too, and he was kind of saying that this little dot thing that prints do sometimes, where if it's like there's like a speck and then it gets a little uneven, that's not something that the AI.
Yeah, that's totally true. The part that I was like, is that the AI texture is okay, close to the left-hand side of the image, not the woman in the white, not the woman in white, but like I think it's like an animal, the thing that's in the middle of the print next to her. There's sort of like one little smear that I was like, oh, the AI could have maybe done that.
I like your terminology of the AI schmear. Like, I know what you mean after playing with this for a while.
Yeah, we're like creating our own language to describe its mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. AI or a print?
AI, but it's very nice.
Yeah, I agree. The leaves at the very center for me, I think, are what are kind of tripping the sensor in my brain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like right here.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I agree. And it is AI.
It's a good one.
Yeah, woodcut by Al Richter in this of the Garden of Eden.
Man, that creature.
Yes, isn't this one so good? I was like, wow, yes.
That one's my favorite.
That one is really cool.
I thought this kind of stippling was really nice. Like I hadn't seen it do that in any other woodcut prompt. Okay. AI or a print?
That's the hardest one to me so far.
I feel like this could be a monotype.
Because this has been my experience with the AI. It's pretty good at making monotypes. Every time I tried to make an intaglio print, it made a monotype instead.
It's also tough because usually you can tell if there's a human in there, it's not going to do very well. But there's nothing quite humanoid. There's like this shape in the middle that might just be like a mid-ground tree. It's kind of hard to tell what it is, or maybe a person.
I'm gonna say it's a print because I think that the AI would have made the edges more symmetrical.
I'm gonna say it's an AI. I think I'm gonna oppose.
It's AI.
Damn it. I just thought you've been showing us a lot of AI ones, so I was like, maybe this is the one. Which is the one that's gonna trick? This is.
Well, this was still the prompt woodcut engraving of the Garden of Eden in Albrecht in the style of Albrecht Dürer, which is very confusing.
That's bonkers.
I should.
Yeah.
This one was DALL-E though, and this was Midjourney.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
see, I think that Midjourney is definitely better at this than DALL-E
yes.
is, and I've only played around with DALL-E.
Yeah, I think this was DALL-E, but this one was also Midjourney.
Oh,
Okay,
Midjourney totally understands line work, and DALL-E
Yeah.
does not understand lines.
No,
Huh.
I mean, this is not wood engraving, but I agree, like DALL-E is a very good monotype artist, but
Yeah.
not, it does not
That's-
understand the words woodcut or engraving. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's all it does. Just monoprints. Huh. Okay.
Okay. Woodcut or AI?
I think this one's a woodcut. I think this one's a print. But I'm not like completely confident.
I feel like it's hard to tell if there's like gray, like the gray pixels or not, because it's a little bit fuzzy, but I'm gonna say print also.
It's AI. So
Oh,
this
man.
one kind of shocked me too. And I added the language in the style, in a Czech motif style. And I'm wondering if it's not picking up on like Etsy shops. Because I
Oh,
think
100%. Yeah.
So this
Yes.
is an example of a print that was on Etsy, for example.
Yeah,
that I was
100%.
kind of
That's what it's
playing
looking
off
at.
of for the prompt. And what was weird though is I actually modified it slightly, y'all, because this is what I showed you, but this is the original because I could not get it to not put this some object around it. When I said in a Czech motif style, it was like I'm gonna put little flowers and do the like the wood grain background.
Oh, absolutely, because that's like, so
Yeah.
like in between undergrad and grad school, I worked for an Etsy shop, then that was like my day job.
Oh, yeah.
And Etsy shops like meticulously hashtag everything to make it searchable because it's so difficult to get things to show up at the top when you're trying to sell it on Etsy. And that this makes perfect sense to me. That must be something that people use on Etsy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the one on the left are the 4 options that Midjourney came up with, and the one on the right is an example from an Etsy shop, just for context.
Yeah, the staging.
The staging.
We also, at the Etsy shop I worked at, we also did stage things.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Exactly like that.
Let's see. Yeah, and that brings me to the case for woodcut right now, which we'll take a closer look here at some comparisons between Midjourney and some actual woodcuts. And I picked out a few woodcuts, which I really admire the mark making in them, and like how I think this example from Daly to Martin is particularly using some mark making that DALL-E is not able to understand or achieve that's particular to the woodcut. So if we think about like the chatter off her shoulder that would come from a woodcut, and I'll zoom in here. So these two marks are from the AI, and then these two are from DALL-E. And it's like definitely picking up like a small grouping of marks, but not like the tapering that comes from the blade going into the wood and then that like flick up where it chops at the edge. Or like there's some hint of crossing over in this example, but when you actually do it with the woodcut and the lines are going across each other, it just feels way different.
Yeah, I mean, like the marks in an actual woodcut are like, I don't know, ghosts of the original tool, or like footprints of the original tool. And there's like no original object that's creating a footprint in the AI one. So it just like makes random shapes that it thinks are close. That's interesting.
No, I really wonder about that. Like the AI has no understanding of that action. And so even though a woodcut is a mechanical reproduction when you start printing it, it's still like AI is too removed. So with that, before we make with AI and just like test and play around, I wanted to talk a little bit about how AI works. I'm sure you all have seen this image where there's an explanation of how an AI works, and they're like, it's a neural network. And there's these JPEGs floating around and it's showing connections between them. But I think we all nod in our heads at that and we're like, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't know if it actually makes sense if we really think about it. And I want to talk a little bit about like what matters in creating a data set for an AI. So quantity. And I'm going to use some examples of identity because it really, really matters with identity. And when I was trying to make my print samples, I was running into a lot of issues with like, if I tried to describe the person, it wouldn't do anything unless I used like very generic terms of like race, sex, ethnicity. And so that said, with a data set, it matters the quantity of the image for each thing you're trying to represent, right? So if you had more of one kind of identity over another, that would skew your data set. And it also matters like what words are attached to that. So for example, the DALL-E AI image generator is known that if you just put person, it will typically generate a white person or a white man. And it could be the quantity, but it could also be that images of men in their data set have the word person as opposed to of a Black woman or an Asian person. The other thing you got to think about is variety. So if you wanted to search for a Chinese American person, if you just have a lot of images of one celebrity, then you're going to skew it in that way. So instead of just having Nora Lum represent all of Chinese American women, you have to make sure that your data set has a variety of Chinese American women, which she still just come up in the search results. But one big criticism I would say is they don't have any like clear documentation of who is working with them to help represent diverse identities, you know? They just say it's messed up sometimes and we're not sure. But that said, it's also our real world problem that until we solve the specifics of our IRL issues, that's going to be reflected in anything we make with technology. So that is to say a few things to think about as we begin to work with AI. AI is a tool for thinking, not a brain that thinks. It's not as expansive in its ability to understand our real world experience, as we talked about with like the visual variety of mark making and composition. And then I still have our question of, like, what are the stories and the meaning making that we're looking for in working with AI? Yeah, do y'all have any thoughts on that before we dive into DALL-E or Midjourney?
I guess just this also reflects, so we've seen that if you've experimented at all with these tools, you'll see that they do paintings and drawings really well. And they have such a hard time, as we've seen, kind of nailing the finer details of printmaking. And this also is reflected, or is a reflection of what's out there on the internet and how the wider public understands or doesn't understand what printmaking is. And this is like a hundreds of years long issue of the ubiquity and misunderstanding of printmaking in broader culture that we're all probably very familiar with.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really, I don't know, stands out to me about this activity as particularly as relates to like identity and representation is the moments when I feel like it kind of becomes a metaphor for human thinking mistakes, like the way that, I mean, we categorize things so much by language. And when we look at how AI uses language to catalog things and categorize things, and then it makes mistakes or like prioritizes some identities over others, like it's doing that because our system for processing the world based on categories and like lumping things into linguistic groups, like we're modeling it based on our own meaning making. And I think that that's something that art making in general kind of has to offer, is that like when you're doing observational drawing, you're drawing the specific details of the thing that you're looking at for on its own terms, like as its own original, unique, one of a kind thing. And if you just like, I'm going to draw an apple, and you draw like a random apple, then you're going to do like what DALL-E does and get it kind of weird. And I think that can also be a metaphor for like how we interact with individuals of different cultural backgrounds and how we present ourselves as individuals from different cultural backgrounds. Is like, if we can really look instead of trying to languageify everything like DALL-E does, then we'll be better and more empathetic citizens.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you connected that to drawing, because I've actually been articulating that in like my teaching philosophy lately of like,
yeah,
drawing is important and why, like, what is the added value you get as a human from looking closely. And I think drawing is so important in the age of AI, because it teaches you to look in detail and in real time and consider deeply.
It forces you to like strip away assumptions about what you're looking at, and that's like a really important skill for humanity.
So this next segment is Let's Make with AI. And so we're gonna open up DALL-E 2 and then Midjourney and kind of go through the process I was doing to make the game we played earlier, where you take a print that's a real thing and then try to use it as a prompt to start generating images. And so Mary Claire and Kathryn have each picked one out for us to try this with. Either of you want to go first?
Go ahead, Mary Claire.
Mary Claire.
Okay. All right. So here's our source image.
Excellent.
The Goya print that we all know and love. And then I did realize that you can only type 400 characters into DALL-E at a time, which I didn't realize before I started doing this, because I hadn't tried to make any complex prompts.
I ran into the
So-
same issue. I feel you.
Do you guys want me to like start a sentence and then you guys can add to it with like what else you think might be helpful for DALL-E with this image?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna try to sort of do it as though I haven't already played around with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. A black and white intelli
Yeah.
image
Mhm.
of
Yes.
with a group of
Owls? They look like, I always thought they
like
looked
they're
like
like
owls.
they're like owls and cats and
And
bats.
Yeah, say that. Owls, cats, and bats. That's good. Owls, cats, and bats.
All right. So I've got a black and white intaglio image of a man sitting in a chair and resting his head on a desk with a group of owls, cats, and bats behind him. What else do you think the AI would like?
Mm,
Or should I just put this in and then we'll...
do it.
All right, here we go.
Let's see what it does with the simplest version.
Ooh, we got some like Edward Gorey monoprint vibes.
Yeah. It's
Oh wait, let me make it so that we can look at both of them together.
oh yeah.
All right.
His
So we'll just go.
not quite on the desk.
Yeah, his head is like on a tablecloth that's floating next to the desk.
Ooh.
Oh. They added some more furniture.
Wow.
Ooh, those are really drippy.
Those are drippy.
Oh, and there's an owl man. The man is an owl.
Unexpected. Yeah, sometimes I think it's fun to think about how you would recreate these marks in a print, you know?
Yeah,
like
I do actually often when I look at DALL-E, I think that Christian Rex Van Menen's paintings look like DALL-E images, but he made them before DALL-E existed. And do you guys know that painter?
No, yeah.
I'm
we'll
gonna,
have to look it up.
I mean, his
Oh
paintings
wow,
are
yeah.
really...
Ooh, the gummies.
Well, actually, you know what? I will show you his monotypes because...
That's where it's at.
Oh, these are like... Yeah, these are like these are old ones, but like he was making these people with distorted faces before DALL-E existed.
I see what you're saying, like with that body that's like just a glob of chunked paint.
Yeah, it's weird.
Have you used the edit tools?
No.
Let's do it. If you hit edit on one of these and let's modify. So if you want to erase part of this and then add something, so if you want to like add that text on the desk, you could like erase the desk text. Yep. And then add a prompt and say, just erase all that and say add text here. And then it's gonna add something in there.
Who knows what it will be?
Ooh, that last one looks pretty close.
That last one looks close.
Oh,
AP.
APs.
All right, it's an artist's proof.
All right, we got some text in there. There's one more feature on the edit we should try.
All right.
So you can add a frame. So it's right next to the eraser tool, that one. So if you wanted to like put the cat that goes behind him, you could extend the image to the left. By place. Yeah, put your cursor slightly.
Oh, I think I see what you're
like
saying.
that. Yeah, like you're gonna add that way. And say,
let's look at the cat again.
Yeah.
Um, a cat with big
Yeah.
eyes sitting on the ground and staring at the man.
We're very
I hope it's a big cartoon cat. I hope it's like big shiny eyes.
oh, exactly what you hoped for.
It's huge.
Wow,
So big.
that's pretty funny. That's
It's
good.
so-
I mean, honestly, they kind of do have the same mood. They're different. They're different cats, but I think they have the same mood.
Oh
Is
my
there a way to use the edit tools to like change like the line quality or something? Like if I'm like, I like these things that you created, but now I would like to try to get you to actually duplicate the line work of an engraving.
I don't know. Like I definitely have spat it back through and said like wood block print. Like I've literally just tried like no wood block print. But I was really struggling to like, for example, if you wanted to talk about like the background is like this texture, whereas the person is this line quality, like it really could not assign textures to specific things you were describing. It understood like you want the thing, but not like how it was drawn.
Yeah. I mean, I had been kind of playing around with like I tried to explain that the background, I wasn't even trying to get the aquatint texture, but I was trying to explain like that the background is a flat gray, like there are no other objects back there, and I was very uninterested in
It really
giving
wanted
me
to
a
add
foreground
stuff.
with no room.
Oh
Um,
man.
I like that. Okay, I want to save this. How do I?
Is there a little
Is it?
download
It's
icon?
just saved, yeah. Oh, like that, okay. Yeah, download.
Great. That's the one.
That one's definitely
That one is so good. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to play around with Los Caprichos anymore, or do we want
Let's
to move
do
on?
Kathryn's print in Midjourney.
Let's
How's
do
that?
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll do this one on my computer, yeah, but then we'll use your image and prompt.
So my image was The Censor by Martin Schongauer,
Oh yeah.
which
So we have here.
oh you have perfect. It's like really richly, highly detailed, but it doesn't have any human stuff in it. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
it does something interesting.
It
Cool.
seems hard. I'm excited to see what it does.
So the way that the Midjourney works, I have the subscription. I think you can still test this out. You just want to direct message it so you're not like in the main feed of everyone playing around with the AI. And you just like chat at it. So this is my chat box here. And you have to do like slash and it tells you the commands you can do. So the prompt for like saying what you want the image to be, you say imagine, and then you just start writing like you would for DALL-E 2. So how would we describe this? Or what did you write?
I had like it wasn't a super long description, but I had written a highly detailed black and white wood engraving of a religious censer on tan paper.
Is it SER or SO?
Yes.
Yeah, it's SER.
On tan paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we try it?
Yeah.
So the weirder thing about Midjourney is it takes a little longer, and I believe we'll see it like it generates in stages in front of you,
Oh, that's
populating like this.
Oh,
So at first I thought, what? It didn't make it right. What is this garbage? But eventually it gets to a wood engraving.
so it does know what a censor is.
Mm-hmm.
it's so fascinating to see it refine.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And then what we can do is we can upscale one of these, or we can make versions of one of these. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So do we want to see a larger version of any one in particular?
How about number 2?
Number 2. Any variations on any of them?
Maybe a variation on 1.
On number 1.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we want to make any suggestion edits? Add chains?
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions, Mary Claire?
Maybe just put with mini chain. What highly detailed black and white wood engraving of a religious censer with many chains on tan paper.
This is important because it is.
Because what if it thinks that the tan paper has chain?
Sorry. Well, it is like even important to put like this information about the black wood engraving first, or it won't prioritize that. So that was something I found interesting playing around with it. While it's queuing that, I'll do one more here. So since you picked out, oh, there it goes. Since you picked out 2, another function of this is you can blend images like I showed you I did with my artwork. So I thought it'd be fun if we tried blending Melancholia and the Goya print.
Cool.
Where'd it go? Okay, so we have this with the chains. These are like berries.
Yeah. It's interesting too, the chains aren't like exactly chains, they're really close.
Right.
It
Do you
really wants to
find-
make a ceramic thing.
Yeah. Do you find that, do you guys, because you've both used Midjourney and I haven't really used it, do y'all find that, so like the thing that I noticed with DALL-E is like DALL-E itself kind of has a style, like it has a couple different styles, but there's like overarching themes and like the ways that every image it makes looks. Does Midjourney also sort of have a style, and how might you describe it if it does?
I think it does. I think it leans towards like pop culturally illustrative, very exaggerated cliches. So
I haven't played with it much, but the first kind of thing that came to mind when I was looking through, because I joined like the bigger Discord and was looking through the main thing, and there's a lot of like traditional American tattoo aesthetic in there. It feels like a very heavy graphic line quality. So
I would take us and venture in there, but you have to sort through people who are prompting inappropriate things. You have to like wean between someone who's wanting anime girls, and then there's like a lot of Baby Yoda. It's a wild mess in there. Let's try blending though. So we can take Melancholia here. Where is it? So organized.
Yeah.
And then this one, and see how it combines them.
I think my camera turned purple.
What happened?
It's cool.
I don't know, my laptop camera just decided that it was gonna kick the bucket today. I'm gonna pause and see if I can make it stop doing that.
Okay, you look stunning as well.
Yeah, the purple's cool.
Ooh, look at the bird heads.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, now that the figure of Melancholia is now doing the action of the figure from Los Caprichos.
I kind of like this wall that has like an artwork on it.
There's a little bit of like an MC Escher vibe going on in that one, like distorted perspective stuff.
Which I would also say is a popular prompt in the Midjourney general chat.
It goes, I mean, it seems like the style of images that Midjourney is creating, I could see some sort of like similarities to Smesher line work.
Wow.
That one's like sort of gruesome.
It is. Yeah. What is this on the wall?
Why does the ball have eyeballs?
And the owls like became clouds. It's like an object that's somewhere in between a cloud and an owl.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean, in this regard, it kind of brings me to my last few points here. These are like what I have read from other people that say, you know, what might we use AI for in creative work? And they were talking about like, it's great at combining like disparate ideas. So if we wanted to see, like if we wanted to combine that image of melancholia with something like off the wall, because we just blended two images that are, you know, they're print history.
Yeah.
But if we were like, what is I don't know. I guess that's how we got Robot Picasso earlier, right? That example. And then I think it's really good for sketching, you know, but for loose, not specific, because it can't do like the hands, the eyes. Yeah. And then I love this diagram in terms of like when you should use ChatGPT, and I think it can apply to AI image generators too. You know, does it matter if the output is true? Yes. Do you have the expertise to verify that the output is accurate? No, don't use it. If you are able to, willing to undertake full responsibility, legal, moral for inaccuracies, then yeah.
I like that. That's a very helpful diagram.
Yeah.
Kathryn, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah. I also think about, so there's a factor in these generative AI things called temperature, and temperature is like the craziness that it'll allow, and if you turn the temperature really down low, then it's going to remove anything that it thinks is unlikely. And so for something like ChatGPT, if the temperature is low, you get really boring, repetitive text. And for something like DALL-E, if the temperature is low, then it's going to create the same types of images. It's going to eliminate anything that it thinks unlikely. And so if you constantly keep that setting there where it's not going to give you anything absolutely bonkers, which is what you usually want, then it's always going to be filtering itself down to more and more predictable results, which I think is something that we should also keep in mind. There's this potential cycle of we feed ourselves AI art, we output something, the AI feeds itself on that, and we kind of trickle down into this funnel.
Well, I absolutely think the next evolution of this is to do a print portfolio in the exact way that Mary Claire said, where we generate something, but then actually make a print that kind of furthers that aesthetic. So I'm going to put out a call for that soon. And I think instead of DALL-E 2 print workshop, it might just be AI print workshop. Yeah. And we will be the master printers for the AI.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity to talk about all of this fun stuff and nerd out on it. And I'm excited about the portfolio and all the possibilities.
Oh, yes. Thank you both for being here. I couldn't have imagined a better pair of folks to include in the conversation. Y'all brought some really thoughtful feedback to it.
Yeah, it's always a treat to get to talk with the both of you. So thank you.
Cool. Maybe we should wave goodbye to folks on the other end.
Goodbye.
Bye.